What is the most BS reason for a teacher to give you a bad grade? Because he didn't read my paper. It was a university class where Atar was responsible for grading the papers. He was clearly overwhelmed and just reading introductions and grading based on them alone. I had a 2-part introduction that fully addressed the prompt, but as he only read the first part, one got my paper back with a big C at the top. I ended up getting full credit after I challenged the initial grade. We had weekly spelling tests in my 11th grade English class, which I thought was a bit remedial by that point, and probably said so in a not completely diplomatic way. The teacher even made you write any words you got wrong 5 times and hand that into her. By the end of the class, I would typically get perfect scores on them, but one time I got a test back with no actual errors, marked as a 0%. My teacher's explanation was she saw me talking to someone in our free period before class who ended up doing poorly, and that was my fault because I distracted them from possibly studying. Wrote in Chicago format and lost points. The assignment instructions said to write in Chicago format. I did try and point this out. Basically still lost points, but they upped the final grade. I did a presentation in biology. The teacher told me she wanted me to do a creative introduction instead of just opening it with the standard "today I'll be presenting." So I did. I invented a short story about an old lady going to the supermarket and worked in some early symptoms of Alzheimer's, the topic I was presenting. I was so invested in that character. She had a name and a backstory. I even drew up a few comic panels so that everyone could follow along easily. Then at the end of my presentation, I asked my class which symptoms the old lady in the story had, and hence what stage her Alzheimer's was. I get my grade back, and the teacher deducted points for the intro, since she told me to do a creative intro, so it wasn't an original idea. Like, what the hell? I came up with the story. I drew the comic panels. All of that was me. I felt so betrayed. If I hadn't done a creative intro, she would have deducted points, so I did one, and she deducted points anyway. And after all that work, still grinds my gears. I was 15 at the time. I was taking a 1-week online class. In the syllabus, the teacher said you must post 6 times throughout the week. So I posted 6x on Monday, 1x on Wednesday, and felt I was good to go. I get my grade/teacher comments, and the teacher wrote KNO 905. You had some good posts early in the week, but then you stopped posting, so I had to mark you down. I was annoyed by this, but then realized it was the last online course in the program, and frankly I didn't care. I still graduated, and that certificate is proudly sitting in my junk drawer for all to see. A friend of mine got a -1 for scratching his head. Our teacher said he was faking it. My 7th grade gym teacher gave me a D because I hardly ever smiled. My life sucked at that time. Staples were not in the right spot for my essay, even though I had them in the top left corner like always. Not me, but a 7-year-old student I coached for a public speaking contest. She is a child prodigy, a self-taught fluent English speaker in a country where very few people speak good English. She also has a natural sense of how to structure a speech and gives all her speeches impromptu instead of memorizing. After she finished her speech, the first response from the judges was, "Do you think you speak better English than us?" Spoiler alert, she does. I spoke to them and none of them were truly fluent. They then gave her the second lowest grade possible. She got a bad grade for being better than the person grading her. I didn't like a movie that was supposed to be her favorite. She would do stuff like this all the time to other students as well. Complaints were made, but I graduated before I saw where it lead. She gave me a 0 because she didn't think I read the book. She said I would have gotten a 75% if she thought I read it. 75% of the test questions right supposedly means I didn't actually do the reading. Still one of those things that pisses me off even 10 years later. In the 90s, my family didn't have a computer, and I had no access to one. I spent a lot of time on a handwritten assignment for school, and the teacher gave me a B. Writing as a comment, I would have given you an A if you had typed it up on a computer. I'm still bitter. My teacher lost my coursework on the bus home. I refused to redo a year's worth of work in 3 weeks, and I got taken from an A to a C. BS. School sided with him. My friend failed French because she had a French accent, and the teacher couldn't understand her French because she was American. My friend had spoken French since she was 4. I was accused of plagiarism because I had an above average vocabulary. I got a grade in the end, but I was ticked. It was a group project where nobody did anything. I had to do the whole thing and turn it into a teacher who usually works with the special needs kids. She didn't think preemptive strike was a term an 8th grader should know, so obviously it was plagiarized. I got points off because of the bad grammar in the quote I used. The quote was a penhemas I'm become death, destroyer of worlds. I got 10/10ths on a test, but my teacher took points away from me because she didn't want my classmates to be jealous of my grade. This was English class in a Dutch school, so English is a requirement. I was the only native English speaker in my class, and this was a course for adults only. 4th grade, the day before Thanksgiving break. There was no work to be done, of course, so we had a busy work art assignment. We were all handed graph paper and told to color each of the squares either yellow, orange, red, or brown. And once we finished, we were supposed to cut out corn shapes to make Indian corn decorations. I already thought this was stupid, and filling in all the squares was tedious, so I traced the corn shape on the graph paper and only filled in the squares that would end up as part of the final product. This meant my decorations looked the same as all the others, but I didn't waste time filling in squares that would just get cut away. When the teacher saw what I had done, she gave me a 50 for skipping work. A spelling test, not graded by the teacher, but by the kid next to us. It was a kid named Anthony who decided all my words that had letters U and E were switched and marked pretty much every word wrong. But they weren't. Like, this was probably in 3rd grade, so my handwriting was chicken scratch, but that was really stupid to me. I was upset since it was the first time I failed something in school. When I was 16, in the middle of doing my GCSEs, my dad got into a serious car accident. He was in intensive care for about 2 months. During that time, we were told that he would probably not survive. Thankfully, he pulled through. But in the meantime, I hadn't been doing any coursework or going to school. This happened in January. My exams were in May/June. I managed to do enough revision to pass my exams, but I never managed to finish my coursework for art class. The quality of my work was worth an A, but I hadn't done enough of it. I applied for mitigating circumstances, meaning that if granted, my work could have been marked on quality rather than quantity. But for whatever reason, the school refused, so I ended up getting a bad grade. That was 10 years ago, and I'm still angry about it. I broke my right arm in 3rd grade. I write with my right hand. The teacher gave me a bad grade because my handwriting with my left hand was barely legible. I failed a lit exam in college because I answered a question too well. We were supposed to write an essay comparing and contrasting one of the books that we read that semester to a modern concept or ideal. We had known about this particular question for weeks, so we had had plenty of time to prepare. Apparently, it's possible to be too correct, because the response I got was that, though it is clear I did not plagiarize, none of my thoughts were original, and matched too closely with the author's interpretation of the work. I was the only person in the class to not only fail, but to get less than a B. I got no other bad marks on the rest of the exam either. He failed me, based on just that one part. In high school, I used the word lascivious to describe a character in a book, and my teacher didn't know what the word meant. So logically, he took off a point. Me, Ms. Teacher, you didn't give me a point for this, but it is on the mark scheme. Ms. Teacher, I don't agree with the mark scheme, so I didn't give you the mark. For context, this is a standardized test, which is why there is a mark scheme. Edit, this is a practice test. We used past papers and hence past mark schemes. Sorry for the confusion. I got an F the first semester in chemistry, and I was really pushing myself to get a better grade for the next semester. Needed a good grade to study what I wanted. Then we heard that another teacher from another school would make the test, but the teachers in our classes would grade it. So I have been doing all in my power, read everything, written summaries, did the math, watched documentaries etc. And I get the final grade, D, and I was very happy with that. Then my teacher takes me aside and tells me that I actually got a way better grade, C, could pass as a B, but if he gave me a C it would look bad for him since I got a F on his test the semester before. So I was pretty pissed after that, but he left before I could say anything. It was my last day of school as well. Didn't happen to me, but a teacher kinda gave everyone in a class bad grades because they ditched her. They all planned to hang out after the last class. Guess she was better about it. Not a bad grade, but I remember I was so close to being the first person to ever score a 100% on my 10th grade Spanish final. The one question I got wrong was, ¿Qué podi comer es el pescado? What type of food is fish? A. El carne, meat. B. La fruta, fruit. C. El pan, bread. D. La verdura, vegetable. I, of course, picked meat and got it wrong because my teacher insisted that fish isn't meat. She's a Catholic and eats fish on Fridays during Lent. According to her the correct answer is fruit because fish are sometimes known as the fruit of the sea. What the hell? Cram your 99%, Sonora. This would be an A paper from some other students, but you can do better. I got a C, and no other feedback on how to improve. I had a cranky religion professor back in junior high school. She lowered the grade of another student because they had written in the exam that when Moses got the 10 commandments there was lightning, when the correct answer was thunderbolts. I had a high school French teacher who failed me on a written test for using pencil. He claimed his eyes only saw pen. My family was outraged and called the dean. The dean was like, oh well, he's getting them ready for standardized tests. My entire family had master's degrees plus and were like, what standardized test is in pen? It's always pencil. This is a school. Years later I have my doctorate and not one damn test ever was pen only, standardized or otherwise. My paper didn't make her feel happy. It was an analytical writing course designed to teach how to write a thesis. The teacher was one of these super hippie artsy people and most of the curriculum involved just reading articles she failed to get published. So we had to do this analytical discourse on someone's work, and it was trash. So I picked it apart. I got an F. I went to her saying WTF. I followed the rubric to the T. Her response, so well the paper was good and all but it didn't make me happy. It was kind of mean, and I don't like mean. I was like, the assignment was to find flaws in the paper, it had countless. She replied yes, but it didn't make me happy, you get an F. I went to the chair, and it turns out her father was on the board of directors, and she had sued the school several times. So she was bulletproof and got to do whatever the hell she wanted. Because all tasks had room for interpretation, multiple answers and opinion, but my teacher only accepted his own exact opinion, interpretation and choice. Edit. I just remembered I had a teacher who gave me a D because he lost one of 2 papers I gave in for my math exam. She liked my dad, gave me a bad grade, and called him to go talk to her about it. I thought my design teacher had it in for me as he kept giving me Ds for what I considered pretty good artwork. So to prove it, I had my professional graphic designer father do my homework, another D. Then I had my professional illustrator mother do it the following week, D. When we called him out he didn't really have an excuse on why he considered professional standard design work only to be worth a D in a grade 10 project, but we enjoyed calling him out in a meeting with the head of the year. I lost 2 points out of 10 on an assignment because a full mark means perfection and only God is perfect, and -1 point is only for instructors and professors. Each point mattered at the time because a full scholarship was on the line depending on our grades throughout the semester. Edit. Just to clarify, I lost 2 points out of 10, which actually is 2% of the whole grade. This was in the UAE. I lost several more grades in similar assignments. In one of them, it was questions from a paragraph, so once I asked him and went through the answer step by step logically, he got defensive, accused me of wronging him and that he grades arbitrarily, and left the class. I lost 3 more points after that lol. I lost the A grade even before the final, and thus lost my chance at the scholarship. Nobody in the administration cared. I still resent him to this day. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.